Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is Pamela Marie Edmunds, and this is Love Never Dies radio show, broadcast here on Tuesday evenings now. And I'm broadcasting from a beautiful place called Sedona, Arizona. Beautiful red rocks. If I wander to the other end of my home here and look out the windows, I can see the gorgeous red rocks. The energy is extremely high, and put it on your bucket list to get yourself out here sometime to at least visit. It's a wonderful experience. It's a large spiritual community here, and it's I read for a lot of people who come in from all kinds of places. I do work at a shop in uptown in the area here, and a lot of them are getting some sort of a little healing when they arrive here because of the high energies. So I am Pamela Marie Edmunds. As I said, I like to be spirits want me to call myself a psychic medium now. Psychic medium, which meaning I work with psychic abilities, but I also am a medium. And I'm a trance channel. I am an animal communicator, a pet detective, radio show host, of course, and a teacher. And I've been in this field now, I'm going to say, over 20 years now. Over 20 years, yeah. And tonight's show, I always ask Spirit, what's the topic? I don't always know, especially when I'm doing the show solo, but, with support of your discussion, those of you who come forward. And I literally heard, my mother's in heaven. I've almost wrote it as my mother is in heaven, but it's my mother's in heaven. And I had to sit with that to exactly see what Spirit was talking about. And I'm just going to read what I wrote, and then I'm going to start talking a bit, and then you got something to add to it, a hand up. And by the way, I found out last week there is some sort of a button. If you need to black yourself out, you can do that. Turn your video off if you need to have some privacy. All right. But there is a button that can put up was it yellow or orange hand that we saw last week? A couple of you were here. And it's almost like you're raising your hand. Okay. Or put your own hand up. I don't know what that hand signal is. It's got to be there someplace. But keep learning new things. I've been using this Zoom for a while, and I never heard of that. So, okay. So what I wrote here for the show is, we're talking my mother's in heaven. Join in for a discussion about how your experience with death has changed since you became spiritually awake. What were you told as a child when a loved one died? Where did you think they went? How is what you were told as a child changed? How is what you were told as a child changed for you? And if you had a young child now, what would you tell them if they lost a loved one? Very, very different. I'm going to start with my story, okay? I'm in my 60s. We never talked about death. I did go to a religion growing up as a child. I did do Sunday school. It was a Protestant religion. Death was never talked about. Then I had some deaths in my family, and I was a teenager. Still didn't talk about it. Had no clue where lost my mother when I was 17 and a half. Then I lost a sister a couple years later. Had no clue what happened to them. So, and in heaven was never talked about, or any concept of it. And to me, it really, really hurt me a lot, because that conversation wasn't there. Welcome, Lori. If you can mute yourself, sweetheart. Great to see you. You know what happened? It's almost like it was ignored. This is my experience. I want to hear some of everybody else's. And more or less, after Mom crossed over, my father and siblings who were younger than me and still living at home, they just had to pick up steps in the way of what she was doing, and she wasn't there to do. And it was almost like, don't worry about it, just forget about it. It's like, I don't know how else to explain this. And it took me until I was an adult. And I'm talking a much, let's see, all right, let me stop and think a minute. Probably the late 90s, mid 90s. My mother crossed, it was 1971. That was 20 some odd years difference. We did the grave bit. If I was meant to go talk to her, I'd go to the grave. That was all I did. I didn't know what else. But you know what? When I started waking up spiritually, I started realizing that was totally foreign. That was totally wrong. I'm not trying to judge anyone. I'm just trying to share my experience. And I feel like this was what Spirit wanted me to start talking about. And to see how many other people had some, didn't have any information like I didn't, or it had some information that maybe was false and didn't work for them. I had younger siblings when my mom crossed. Matter of fact, I had a 5-year-old brother. And there was no absolute conversation about where Mom went, other than she's gone, she's dead. And you lay her out in the casket, and that was it. It took, oh gosh, it took till I started being around spiritual people. And I will say, a wonderful religion called Spiritualism, yet I don't want to just focus on that, because that it's an important piece. But you know what it was? I started believing in a spiritual component of life. And that when we cross over, when our body dies, that we still live. And I think that's what's bothering me as I'm talking. My mother, she was dead. As far as I was concerned, there was no more existence of her. You know what? She's been there for years, coming in to visit me. My dear sister, she's dead, she's gone. That was the, maybe it wasn't said, but that was what the undercurrent was. And I now understand, no, they're not. What does somebody else want to share about? Anybody? What else did other people learn growing up or didn't learn? And how did you finally awaken to learn the truth? Love never dies. Okay, there's part of the truth right there. Love never dies, meaning that the essence of a human being, of a pet, we do pets too sometimes, right? It's like they survived that process of death. They haven't jumped off the cliff and disappeared from us. No, they're there supporting us. They're helping us because they love us. Denise, do you have something you want to talk about here, hon? How was your childhood? What happened for you in regards to a death or a loss? Did you have anybody you lost?
Yeah. Well, growing up, I went to Catholic school and we learned about heaven and hell, but we didn't learn that life goes on as far as we can communicate with them. You know, like we won't see them ever, but when we die and we're good and go to heaven, then we will see them one day.
But you've got to go to heaven as part of the condition, right?
Or hell, yeah. So
and that's another whole story. That's another whole story we could get into here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but yeah, so I never knew about until I lost my boyfriend at 15. That's when I started feeling things like a connection. And I thought I was going crazy, but there were too many coincidences. So then I started seeking people like you out, you know, down the road. And because I really thought I was going nuts.
Were you able to sense your boyfriend after he crossed over?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing I'm just going to say, I've been psychic since I was a little girl, but because of the household I lived in, I had to shut that off. So I didn't start feeling spirit until, oh gosh, late 90s. But that's another piece of this component here too. How many people were psychic as little kids and then shut it off?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. A handful. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Denise, before we move on to someone else? See what else.
That I always was able to feel other people's feelings, and I didn't like it. I would know things before it even happened, and it scared me.
Okay. Now, Denise, are you still looking after some grandchildren?
Yes.
You're still, I believe that you.
Two more to go.
And what ages are they?
The ones left here now are 20 and 16. And the ones that went back to mom are 16 and 14.
Okay. Has there been any losses for them that that they've been under your care? Have you had any discussions about death, the afterlife?
Oh, well, yeah, they lost their grandma, and we talked about that, and being I'm the way I am, and I mean I see things and they see what I see because I take pictures, and Lori knows about the pictures. She's got a lot too. And they can see things. Some people can't see what I can see in the pictures, but these kids can. So they hope that life doesn't end.
So then you have given them validation, or actually proof that love never dies. How we go again, all right, and that their loved ones have survived.
Yeah, because I told him, I said, when I leave you better be watching for me because I'm going to be watching for you.
Good. That's awesome.
So I told him not to be afraid.
Awesome. And doesn't it feel good to be able to be open and talk about that?
Finally, yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And that's the right word, finally. And I've heard other people talk in similarity to what our discussion here tonight is. And part of what's come up is that this particular country holds back talking about death, talking about the process of death, because people have trouble dealing with it. And I think that was what I was born into. I don't know. How about you, Denise? Do you feel like you were born into some fear of death, maybe?
Oh yeah, and now it's like coming back because now I'm in my 60s, and it's
Oh,
like
oh, oh,
it's like,
oh.
well, I don't want to die, but I mean, I know that I'll be okay. But
Isn't that comforting too?
in a way, I mean, definitely it's comforting, but I still have that fear.
Well, 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 um, that's better than not talking about it. That's better than not having any belief at all with it. And
Right.
and as you're talking, if I had a child now, a young child or grandchild, which I don't, I have had a grand cat, but that's not,
Oh.
doesn't work. But, I would want to let them know that life continues on just because the physical body is no longer able to function. That being goes to the other side. And it's interesting. I do have a daughter. She doesn't believe in any of this. She's going to be 50 this April, 50th birthday, which makes me feel old. I did have her, I just turned 18. So I'll be 68 this year. But she's not a believer. She helps me with my Excel spreadsheet where I put all my listing of all the services I do and the money that comes in. Beyond that, she doesn't really want to talk about it. And
Might scare her.
well, yeah, someone had told me at one time that she would fit very much in a very much of a born again Christian kind of background. And everybody's got to go their path. I'll be 68, and it took me a good while to finally awaken to all of these truths, so I want to let her awaken in her way. I don't want to cram something down somebody's throat. And I think that's another important thing. They've got to want to know. They've got to want to learn, or they want to search for some of the truths that are here that we can access. So, Judy, you're nodding. You want to talk, hon? Unmute yourself. Yeah.
It takes a second. You see my hand up? Do you see that?
I did. I saw you nodding like this, and so I knew you had something in your head that you wanted to share.
But do you see the hand?
No, I didn't see it. Go ahead.
That hand is at the bottom of the screen. It says reactions. Can you hear me well?
Oh yeah, reactions.
And so when you go in there and it says lower hand, right?
Oh.
You can have smiley faces or anything,
Oh, cute. And then there's a little dot.
That's where you have more.
With more. Oh, I thank you. So that was why you were wanting to let us know. Okay. Do you have something else you want to say about in regards to our conversation here today?
I do, and I'll tell you, I have to thank my mother. My dad was more of a born-again Christian type, and we went to First Baptist Church all my young growing up years. First Baptist is like the top echelon of the Baptist church, and so they teach a little differently than Second Baptist or some of the others. And and I'm glad I have that foundation. It was a beautiful foundation, learning about God and Jesus in heaven and the virgin birth and all of that. So that's a wonderful springboard to learning more. And But Mother was always curious. She was always seeking and searching because she knew that wasn't all there was. And she would study this and read that, and she was into astrology, and she would have these books, and Daddy was not totally pleased with it, but of course he didn't tell her she could not. She wouldn't have listened to him anyway. And then she discovered Edgar Cayce. Now, I think he got her more on the path that she eventually followed. And his world was just wide open, everything. And we did have my father's brother died when I was a child. And then, of course, after that, we lost grandparents. And so Mother she explained, I mean, of course, she used the heaven and angels and as a description.
Good.
It's a little hard to explain to children, or most children. Some children seem to have an understanding right off the bat, but that we added to what we learned and what our interests were, my sister and I, because of Mother. Mother was always a seeker, always. She wanted to know what was, of course, now she really is knowing what. She's firsthand account now. And I feel like Mother is with me. I have felt close to my mother and now my sister.
Yeah.
And more so, well, I feel close to my dad too, but I think my mother and my sister more so. And I guess it's because we shared this seeking and searching and trying to learn everything we can. Some areas I have kind of fallen away from because they did what they were going to do, and they taught me what they had to teach, and then I moved on I didn't stay there. But are you familiar with Joseph Murphy?
No.
Well, he's divine science, religious science. He really turned me on to a lot. And I'm going through, I'm very sensitive right now. You know what I'm going through. And so I feel raw at the moment. But I feel I just lost my sister recently, and I just feel almost like she's sitting right here with me. I just feel so close with her. And so if I start crying, you'll know why. Because I've been crying on and off for days.
Can you show what your niece sent over that belonged to her that was very, very special?
Yes, I can. I'm going to move. I'm going to get up and move.
And people will understand when they see and she shares. This was her sister's.
This is, and I don't know what tribe. It's from, I think, the Second Mesa out in Arizona.
Arizona, interesting. Okay.
And it's a medicine pouch. I can't tell where I am.
Right there. Back up a little with it. Pull it back. Yep.
It's a medicine pouch, and it was made by the Indians. And my sister found out that her totem, and it's an animal totem, is I don't want to drop this because it probably would break. Is the bear. And this one's carved, and it's carrying like a belt or something on its back. I mean, there's meaning to everything. And two, let me show you this.
And it was special to your sisters.
She had it for years, and it was always hanging in a visible spot. Yes, it was very important to her, and that my niece would have sent this to me, not knowing how important this was to me. And Well, this is just a little sterling bracelet that you buy charms to go on, but I don't know if you're going to be able to see this.
This fine.
These were made by a tribe of Indians, I think in Santa Fe. Let's see.
But they
where.
meant a lot to your sister, and your sister, your niece.
That's the bear claw.
Ah,
See, that's her totem. And
so these, that's wonderful. Your niece is not into any of this.
not like Sandra was, or like I.
Awesome.
No,
Thank you.
A little bit, but not really.
Thank you for sharing those, dear.
You're most welcome. This is show and tell. So.
Are you okay? Are you doing all right sharing that?
I'm coming and going. I mean, I'll be fine. I miss my.
And how long has she been gone, sweetheart?
A little over a month.
It's still very new. And the two of you were very close, so.
Very close.
But what, isn't it so much better to be able to feel and sense them around than to have that thought they're dead, they're gone?
I don't know. I don't feel that way at all.
No, I mean, I'm talking about.
I know you know.
What I was sharing, at least my experience.
Yeah.
Which I want to say, one little lead my father had given me to finding the truth. And I just figured it out while she was talking. He was very much into psychic phenomena. Watch all those strange TV shows, One Step Beyond,
Me too.
Twilight Zone. Do you guys, some of you remember some of those shows? And he'd read some weird books about the unexplained. Well, guess what? That was the lead in for me to finally find the truth. Even though he couldn't talk about the death, probably because the hurt and pain he was feeling, right? But I remember seeing some of those shows. It was amazing. So thank you, Judy. Thank you. Who else would like to share and talk? Patty. And for people who, Lori hasn't met Patty. Patty's up in Massachusetts. Patty, can you unmute yourself, sweetheart?
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, dear. Welcome.
Okay.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Well, I, like Denise, was brought up in the Catholic religion, Catholic grammar school, Catholic high school, Catholic junior college. So I had it all.
Right.
But I did lose a grandmother when I was young, about 16 and a half. And I was devastated. I mean, I actually, as a kid, I hyperventilated at the funeral parlor at the wake because I was so upset. Where is she? I'm never going to see her again. And we were very close. But being brought up in the Catholic religion too, it's you have to be good when you're here, so you'll go to heaven when you die. If you don't, you're going to go to hell. You might go to purgatory if you're on the fence. Remember purgatory? But most of the time, you know, you have to work too hard down there. People don't make it. So you better behave yourself and be good if you want to go to heaven. But I didn't know where heaven was. I know we had the belief that it's up there, right? It's up above.
Yeah.
But so I basically had a fear of death. I really did. I've lost a lot of loved ones over the years, like all of us. I'll be 69 in March, so I'm getting up there too. But
okay, we're
yeah,
March, same
March
month.
24th, yeah,
28th,
24th. Oh, you're the 28th.
Yes, dear. Yes, dear.
Oh, wow.
And I want to add something in here. It's been on my mind. We're
Yeah.
not doing any religion bashing. That's not what any.
No.
We are merely
it's just,
sharing our
Right.
experiences and how we learned or
Right.
didn't learn about death.
right. So I was the type of kid that I would question, well, what do you mean he ascended into heaven? What do you mean the virgin birth? What do you mean this? What about heaven? And Nana would always tell me, be quiet and sit down. I was the kid that was sit down. So over the years, I left that church. I tried a few other religions, but I wasn't getting what I wanted. All right. I started reading a lot about spirituality.
Yep.
I did find by accident a spiritualist church that I started to attend. But what changed my mind was knowing what I had learned from other mediums, from going to mediums, was that love lives on. It never dies. And our loved ones live on. And what I believe now myself is that heaven isn't really up there. I believe heaven is either another dimension. It's just another realm. I recently lost my mother. First, my brother died October 20th. My mother and I were with him when he passed. He was handicapped. He was his whole life. She was 102, my mom.
Oh my gosh.
She says to him as he's passing, I said, Mom, he's going. She said, I'll see you in heaven, Stephen. 20 days later, she died.
Oh my gosh.
20 days apart. Yeah, she died November 9th. He died just recently, October
I'm
20th.
sorry.
Say, I'm okay. Of course, I have my moments. I have my moments like Judy, like any of us. But what gives me the comfort is knowing I've dreamt about her. She's given me signs. One was this afternoon. I lost one of her earrings that I had on yesterday.
Oh,
Came
shoot.
home, I said to my husband, damn it, I lost that pearl earring. I feel horrible. It was Mom's. So I went back to her house tonight to do something. We're looking after it in the meantime. You know, eventually we'll move there maybe. But I said, Ma, you got to help me now. Where is that earring? So I walk into the kitchen, over by the kitchen sink, and I look down on the floor. There it is. She helped me find the earring. Yeah.
Well,
She's
and you're
given me a lot of signs since. So
Awesome.
thank you for that. Yeah.
awesome. And you're a devout, are you doing mediumship professionally now?
No, just I do mediumship at some of the fairs and this and that, but I'm not
Okay.
certified. And I can serve church, but I'm not certified. I should be, but
But the point is you are a qualified medium.
yes, I
That's
am.
what I want to say. So when you asked and mentioned that you couldn't find that earring, it's like, help me. Obviously something, okay, let's go check here. Maybe it's there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you, Patty. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Awesome.
This is a
Lori,
wonderful show.
yeah, awesome. I'm glad you're here. And I
Thank
do
you.
want to make a reminder. Most people here do know these shows are archived. Your names are not put on the screen. They're there right now as we're doing this Zoom. But this will be in the archives, the YouTube channel, Pamela Marie Edmunds. And there's a lot of other shows there. There's also channeled recordings from various beings, and there's just interesting things in there. So, Lori,
Yes.
I know you've also had some loss, gone through some loss, but what did you learn in an upbringing, dear?
First I'm going to say to Patty, it's so nice to hear somebody else go, Ma, because I'm from Boston. That's what I would do to my mother. Ma, that's what my son did to me. Ma.
Yeah. Yeah.
I grew up Protestant, and of course all of our friends were Catholic. My mother damn near fainted when we all came home with ashes on our foreheads. Well, we were all playing, and they said, we got to go to church, get ashes. We said, what for? And they said, well, we don't know. We just got to go. So we went. So we all came out with it. And I don't know, my mother had a stroke over it. And we still joked about that until her 80s. And I can remember going to a funeral when we were little kids. Somebody from my father's passed when he worked on the farm as a kid. And we're like, well, you have no idea what protocol is. But when my mom's father passed, I was in the 6th grade. And we had all gone to church. It was Sunday morning. And my grandmother had called my mother before church and said, your father's not home yet, because he would always fish on Saturday. So she had called one of the friends at the yacht club and said, Herbie's not back yet. Can you look for him? So when we were at church, then my mother got the call that he had fallen. And when he fell, he hit the dock, but then he fell in the water. So I remember seeing him, and all we could think of was, he looks like he's sleeping on the couch. Like we would go every Sunday for dinner, and he would always be, like napping on the couch, because I don't know, he was like 6'2", 6'4", and with their ferocious freaking Chihuahua, and I hate small dogs because of that. But he looked like he was sleeping. But I know I didn't want to touch him. And we grew up, you go to heaven, you tell the truth. If you lie and stick out your tongue because there's a black line down it, it still works, because I do that with my grandkids.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah. And I would say I was always into, I'll call it the dark stuff, because back then it was like nobody talked about that stuff. The people who lived downstairs from us had such a collection of horror comic books. They were fun. If I remember them 50 years later, they were phenomenal. And I was always into reading books on witches and, the werewolves and the vampires. And of course, yes, watch Twilight Zone and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I was in my probably close to 50s that I started to realize that something's different. Do I believe in heaven and hell? Yeah, because I think the scales have to balance. No matter what universe or what realm you're in, everything has to balance somehow. And it wasn't until I moved here that I really became aware of things going on and things being open. And I would always try to ask Walter, are your surgeries, did you ever go anywhere? Would you stop asking me that? So I don't know if he did and he didn't want to say, but I remember him saying to me one day, I was sitting on the couch. He says, because you're always talking this crap to me, so I thought you might be interested in this. I was sitting on the couch and I heard Dad come down the hallway and he put his hand on my shoulder. And when I turned around, nobody was there. He goes, I was home alone. And Walter was little.
And
All I
Walter's
could
your
think of
son.
was
Hang
his
on.
grandfather.
Yeah, Walter's your son for anybody who doesn't know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I thought, that is so cool. So I said, to me, that's very exciting. I hope it didn't scare you. To me, that just says that was one of your grandfathers saying, this is not all that there is. For centuries, people have said there's something beyond this. So, I mean, there's not hundreds of millions of people that are crazy. It's not just us. There's something else there.
Yeah.
On how you choose to believe what that other world is, that's all different religions. But I think it's all the same. It all comes from love, and I hate to sound like a cliche.
No.
But it's all a higher knowing, loving power. And it wasn't until really with Walter that I started to really sense things and to know things. And to hear, I have Walter on tape, which freaked my daughter out. But the grandkids could always see him, could always hear him, because he would talk to them when they were sleeping. He would come to them at night. The baby always saw him. And when my mother passed, I took care of her. So I hate to say it was such a relief for me. And it wasn't until a year after I was like, now I feel the void. Now I feel the difference. But has she been here throughout, with little signs or a song or, different birds coming? Yes, definitely. Finding little things around the house. Out of all the craft crap she made, this is my favorite. I call them the button babies. It's buttons with a little wooden head and a step. It reminds me of the fat kid in the snowsuit, which I was always the fat kid in the snowsuit, so I can relate. But I think they're adorable. But is there something more than this? Yes. Is it super comforting for me to know that there is? Yes. I mean, especially since Walt is there, because I had to pretend to be so serious and forthright and very positive about what was on the other side. Because how do you send somebody if you don't know? You know, how can you say, don't be afraid? You know, I was petrified for him to go someplace. I couldn't bring him. I had to ask other people to come in and help him because I didn't want him to go one step alone, not into something he didn't know that he was scared of. So does he come back all the time? Hell yes. That's why when Patty was saying Matt, that's all I could think of was Walter. Matt.
How long's Walter been gone, sweetheart?
Oh, 5 years, 11 months.
And then you lost mom, and
Yep,
now you're caregiver for dad now.
Yep, and he'll be home on Wednesday.
How's he
I was
doing?
I was like, can't you guys keep him a little longer, please?
He's in rehab. Okay. Yeah.
Well, because taking care of yourself is, I'm finding out, much harder than I thought.
Yeah. You've got grandchildren. How old are they, dear?
14 will be 12 and will be 6 next week, 2 weeks.
What have you shared with them?
Well, I've always said, you know, God lives up there. He lives everywhere. But a lot of people like to say he lives in the, you know, up where it's blue and it's, you know, you can see everything because he's got to keep an eye on everybody. The kids, I can relate to kids. You know, when Walter was in hospice, his sister went to see him. And I had the girls here and it was a Tuesday night and we were making meatballs. And Walter called the youngest niece Weasel. I don't know. She was just like all long, skinny with a big head. So he just called her Weasel. She called him Big Weasel.
Okay.
And when she made meatballs one night, she made them like quarter size and they put them on his plate and they kind of look like weasel testicles. They were so small.
Oh, jeez.
He goes, oh, look, weasel nuggets. So, you know, it took me like 3 years before I could make meatballs again. I just couldn't. I didn't want to. I just throw it in the pan, scramble a hamburger because I just couldn't do a meatball. But Abby had come up to me that afternoon and said, I don't want Uncle Walter to go, but God's making a spot for him. And she just stopped me in my tracks because she was like 5. And I said, well, I don't want him to go either, but if he's got to go anywhere, that's the party place and that's the place to be. And my daughter came to pick the kids up in like 20 minutes. My ex-husband called and said, you need to come now. And when I got there, he was already gone. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So do the kids have a little, getting some feedback in regards to some of the truths?
Yeah, because I was tying the babes, he's going to be 6, but he's always going to be the babe. Tying his shoe one day and he looked straight over my head and he goes, I see somebody. And I went, who is it? He goes, I don't know, but I see somebody. And I went, okay, see you later, bye. And he goes, okay, bye. And they just went out to play. And at one point I said to, because I had a reading and the woman said to me, he's showing me rocks. You know, he's working. I don't understand why he's already working. So he must have something special if he's like just passed, but they've put him to work already. I mean, I said, well, he could never sit still. But I came and I asked Abby, I said, you know, does Uncle Walter come to talk to you in your dreams? And she goes, he's busy, you know, he's got a job. And she's just like so matter of fact. And I went, okay. And I said, does he ever show you anything in your dreams? And she goes, he shows me his treasures. Now, we collect rocks, we collect crystals, acorns, and everything is either in a box or a glass container, and that's their treasures. If he saw a pretty rock, he would bring it home for Abby. So I told her as she got older, sometimes when you're like really angry, Uncle Walter can't get through that thick skull of yours because you like shut it off with all the anger. So sometimes I gotta smudge him because she'll be like, smudge me. It's like, what for? She goes to get the bad juju out. And I said, well, sometimes there's a little thing that just sits on your shoulder and you just gotta flick it, to get the mat. Because sometimes, the bad mood just follows you around like dust and you can't get rid of it. And sometimes you literally gotta flick it and say, get the fuck off of me. I've done that many times because it's just like, you can't carry it. You just can't.
And Laura, you're right. It could be an entity that could be picked up, and it needs to be cleansed and released and sent to the light, or it just whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Awesome. Donald, I see the side of your face. You've got a small screen, but that's okay. You're the only one that hasn't spoken here today. You have something you'd like to share, talk about? It's quite an intense topic today, but I feel like it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, really, it is.
What did you grow up with? What did you believe as a young boy? Did you have anybody who left?
It was typical Baptist. And the one I recall most was my grandfather on my mom's side was right around 1961, best I remember. We didn't get to go over there. We were living too far away at the time, and my mother was expecting my younger sister and all that crap. So, but it was very strange because I was real close to my grandparents. I loved them very much. And now I can recall when I was probably 3 or 4 years old, I think it might have been my grandfather on my dad's side, because I can remember going to a graveyard and the hole dug in the ground. I was kind of freaked out about the whole thing, really. With all these adults, all pitiful and all that crap. And it bothered me for a long time, it really did. But over time, as I started, I've always been able to sense spirits.
Good.
And over time, it just got away from that. The whole organized religion thing, I really grew to take a lot of disfavor on that because they don't act as they preach. I mean, and
Okay.
then again, in actual spirituality, they'll think you're nuts if you even mention anything like that. So it's, to them, a spirit of somebody, it's a haint. There's a haint in that place over there. Like it's, just really dreadful thing. But it's, I was always able to sense things that others couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I would know if there was a spirit from somebody or something there in the place. I could immediately connect with it and realize that, hey, it is what it is. Back where I used to live at, in fact, there was it wasn't one of mine because at the time the animal started showing up, none of the ones I had at the time had passed. But there was a spirit of a dog in there that would actually come up and get in bed with people. And they'd think it was one of the ones I had there at the time. They'd reach over to pet it and there's nothing there. And they're like, weird thing happened last night. What's that? Well, I thought one of the dogs got on the bed. I said, a dog did get on your bed. It's okay, don't worry. I said, he visits everybody that comes in here. And I actually knew which one it was of the past animals that had lived there. But it was quite hilarious. Stuff like that. And then I was there for when my dad passed. I wasn't at the house at the time, but I was in town that day. and it coming there. I was actually the one that actually had to pronounce him dead before the authorities came out. Wasn't a whole lot of fun, but
No.
and then my grandmother, my last grandmother, mom's grandmother, she passed in 1988. And there's been others since then, but those were the key ones to me. But it's as far as the thing that most of the religions do with kids is really not a good thing. I mean, they stress so much on it, much like the others have said, on, oh, well, blah, 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 heaven's up there and hell's down the other way and all that. They don't ever touch on the fact that, as we've all said, that they never really leave. They're always with us, both our human kin and our animal kin. And
Right.
I do believe that it would be a much better place that if everybody was taught more along the line of that than some of the distorted myths from centuries past. So it's yeah.
Thank you, Donald. And if you had a child, I don't know that you are a father, are you?
I have one son and 5 grandkids and 1 great grandkid.
Does a son believe as you do?
Mm-hmm.
How about the grandkids?
The grandkids, for the most part, do.
Okay.
They have a couple of them, not so much, but most of them do, especially my grandson Landon and my granddaughter Randy.
Okay.
They followed pretty close on my beliefs that I exchanged with them. And
that makes it it gives you comfort in being able to talk about it with them.
yes, it does. It's like my grandson. My son, he's took a lot of it from me on that. And then Landon, pretty much my favorite grandson out of 3 of them.
Mhm.
Me and him used to have a lot of long talks and stargaze and many things that most of them couldn't. Nowadays, you couldn't get them away from their video games long enough to do anything like that. But he was
Yeah.
a very unusual young man in what he feels and what he believes. And my son, early on, he pretty much got on the same picture I was on as far as the spirit world and love of animals and that sort of thing. So
Wow. So they're in alignment to your beliefs. That's the best way to say it here. Yeah.
yes.
And yeah. And it sounds to me like pretty much everybody had some false beliefs given to them growing up.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do
Awesome.
have to say that
Okay.
I don't know
Thank
if
you,
we're
Donald.
not normal. Yeah, I'd say we were all just whack jobs, my family. No, seriously. You go to one of our wakes and you would think that there was a freaking open bar somewhere. It's not quiet. It's not, well, of course, some people are upset but I remember going to my uncle's wake and I was walking down to the ladies' room. Now, my uncle, I don't know, there was like 200 people like going in and out, and it was loud. People were laughing. We walked by this other room, had 3 people sitting there, and it was so quiet. I felt so bad for that family that it's like, where is the camaraderie? Where is the love? Where is the fun? Where is what you want to share about this person's life? And when I came out of the ladies' room, we looked down the hall, like we had like spilled out into the hallway. And everybody was just like, oh, how are things going? And, do you remember when this happened? And that's what every wake is like for us. And I will say that I didn't have Walter. We had Walter cremated because I was like, I could not put him in the ground. I'd rather have him in a box beside me. So that's, but my sister, who is born again, when she lost her husband, they have a bird, and every now and then the bird, you would be going, Papa, Papa. Well, that's what he called Fred. So I said, when an animal, especially the bird, says, Papa, Fred, that means Fred's here. And she looked at me and I went, oh my God, you of all people who believe in life after death. The bird's proving it to you. Fred is here. Just because you don't have a physical body doesn't mean the energy that you're loving stuff doesn't keep going forward. As my nephew, oh my God, 28 years ago, described the grandfather's death to his brother because they said, oh no, he's going to be cremated. Well, what's cremated? Well, that's where they put you in a big oven and they turn you to ash. He's very analytical. And of course, his brother was like freaking out and he said, don't worry about it. He said, Grandpa's like an empty suitcase. His soul is already gone. And I remember that. And I thought, from one kid to another kid explained it absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and I believe, and if anybody knows the source of this, that there is a very small amount of weight difference between someone who was alive and someone who was dead because their soul has left. Okay, it's I don't know if it's ounces. It's a very small amount, but it's been researched.
Oh wow! I would have liked to have known Walter's. I'm sorry, people. Walter was 6'8" and like 240 pounds.
Okay.
His ashes were 15 pounds.
Okay. All right. But I'm talking the
Yes,
soul.
but I would have liked to have known what his weight, what the exact amount was.
Right. Patty, can you unmute? Do you know a resource for that? You've heard that before? What I was just sharing?
I've read, we had a woman one time give a lecture for some of our members, and she was a hospice nurse, and she had done extensive research, and they said weighing the bodies purposefully. They would weigh the body before, maybe daily, like in a nursing home. Person passes, they weigh the body again. And there was I forget how many ounce difference that the soul had left the body and it lightened the body a little bit. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a very small amount too.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I did want to say one other thing. I have 2 young grandchildren. My daughter, first of all, my daughter had her firstborn child passed at age 5.5 months.
Okay.
She spent most of her days at Boston Children's. She was born with half of a heart. It was what it's called. So she had 5 surgeries. She survived them all, but then she ended up passing at 5.5 months old on Christmas morning.
Sorry to hear that. Wow.
Thank you. But this is 10 years ago. Since then, my daughter has had 2 more children. So 2 years later, she had a little girl, and 2 years after that, a little boy. So now the children are 6 and 8 years old. Okay. The boy's 6, the girl is 8. Well, a couple of years ago, of course, we have pictures of the first one, Valerie, all over in their house and my house, and they come over. And you have pictures of Valerie. When little Valena started talking, she said to me, where is Valerie? And I was babysitting them one day at my daughter's house, and she's at work. And I said, Valerie is in heaven. She's an angel now. I said, she was very, very sick when she was a baby. I said, and she's passed to heaven. She asked me all kinds of questions, and I answered her simply, enough for a 4.5, 5-year-old to understand, nothing elaborate, just easy answers. Well, my daughter calls me that night and she says to me, what did you tell Valena about Valerie? And I said, let me just say one thing first. When a child asks a question, they need to have an answer. And she said, but what did you tell her? So I told her basically what I said. And she says, yeah, that's what she told me. She says, but now she's saying she really wants to go see her sister. Oh, because I said, Valerie was your sister, your older sister, and she passed away. She went to heaven. She's an angel for you. Now she's your angel. So she said, well, now she said she wants to go to heaven and see her. I said, well, simply tell her Valerie was sickly and you're healthy and someday you'll see her, but not now. She's going to be your angel and watch out for you and Matthew. So she said, okay. So she did. And my daughter didn't want to like accept a lot of my beliefs, our beliefs. And I did notice when I was there a couple of weeks ago, she bought the book. I forgot who wrote it. The 5 People You Meet in Heaven.
Okay,
You know,
there's a movie out about that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, she had it on the thing. I know she's reading that and she was reading a couple of other things. So she's kind of coming around more. But I said to her, I said, don't lie to the kids. If they ask you a question, answer them simply, but honestly, you know, and it's working out well. It's working out well.
Wonderful.
Something funny that did happen. The phone rang here and a friend of mine named Valerie called one day and the kids were here and I said, oh, hi, Valerie. And the girl, Valena, says, she's calling you from heaven? I said, no, it's another Valerie. But it was cute, you know, it was cute.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And yeah, we started a little late, so any other quick sharing? I guess what I would like to add in here, it's just come to mind. I haven't had a death in a little while. Well, I mean, my dad and the dog, that's been a little while, but I mean, they immediately come in because of being the medium, and I'm sure a number of you others are all very mediumistic, and I know that. I know from experience with all of you. And I'm going to say one of the last funerals that I ever went to, it was a gentleman, and he showed up. He was there in spirit, and I only shared, you know, with people who I knew were open to hear it. You know, you didn't want to push anything on anybody, because kind of like I shared about my daughter previously. But the point being is, they want to be there. They want to let their loved ones know that they're watching, they're there to comfort them. This is a whole big piece that some of us missed by thinking that, oh, they're dead, they're gone. Or where'd they go? And just the comfort that comes from that. And that love never dies. And I'm so grateful for that title. Love never dies. When we all who are listening right now, who are here in the Zoom or who listen to this recording, once it's put into YouTube channel, we'll be able to communicate. We'll let our children know we're here. Those who are open to it, and whatever way they're open to it. What a gift. This is a gift. And I shared this in one other show, and I'm going to share it. It feels pertinent here to share. Before I came to the truth that I used like to say the essence of an individual survives the process of death. That's the way I like to say the essence, that essence of who they truly are. Okay. You want to call it spirit, that's okay. Some people call it soul. I'm not quite, I think there's another aspect of us above that. That's just my truth, but the essence. When my mother crossed over, I was pregnant with her granddaughter, her very first granddaughter. And it really, really upset me that she wasn't there. She wasn't there. I was young. I wanted some support from her because she'd had babies. She'd had babies and could give me that support. So I was really, really pissed. You know, the gift that I got from finally awakening and believing in that there is an extended life, that who we are doesn't die, merely transitions into another form, right? All of a sudden I says, oh, Mom was there. Mom was there for my daughter's birth, her granddaughter, she came in because she wanted to be there. I just didn't believe that or know that was impossible. What a gift. And I was able to let go of that anger, that hurt. Of course, she wanted to support me. I'm her first. This was her first granddaughter. I just didn't have that belief. What a gift. So wonderful. Anything else quick somebody wants to say? Lori, go ahead.
Out of the clear blue today, I'm sitting on the couch and all I could smell was lemons.
Okay. Who does
Lemons.
lemons?
So I don't know if lemons has anything to do with anybody.
Huh.
The only thing I have lemon in the house is lemon balm, and that's all the way upstairs. So there's no way I would smell that downstairs.
My suggestion for you is to ask your guides why you were smelling that.
Probably
Okay,
because it's one of my favorite scents, but
right.
it's a very refreshing, I think, uplifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
scent.
Yeah. But ask your guides, your angels, you know, they could probably answer for you. Because and that's the way it kind of works, everyone. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, Judy.
Always one last thing.
That's fine.
I didn't know if anyone saw or anything, but I could feel almost like a crown being put on around a crown around my head. It was my sister. She was here. She was anointing me in some way, in some respect. And I could feel very strongly. And I didn't know if anyone saw anything. Well, of course, it's so dark here. If anyone saw anything or picked up anything, because it was outstanding. It wasn't maybe this is happening. It was very outstanding.
Part of what I can tell right now is part of your head is not showing in your picture.
No,
So part of it is not visible. So we wouldn't have necessarily seen that. Anybody else have anything?
I can feel it so clearly, So
Patty, have you got any response on that, hon?
When you said crown, you made me think of my mom, because 2 years ago when we had her 100th birthday party, we got her a tiara that said I'm 100. But yeah, I don't know if it's a condition.
Having that put on my head, I could feel that it was crownish, tiara, you know, it wasn't a hat. It was, yeah, I could feel it.
I did ask her, I moved in with her almost a year ago because she needed more help, 102, you know, but she did marvelous. She lived in her own house. We did have conversations about these kinds of things. And she told me that her mother, my babci, I'm Polish, she had some gifts also. And my mother and I, like, were on the same wavelength, as you'd say, you know, we knew things about each other. And so I said to her a few months back, I said, you know, when your time does come, you have to stay in touch with me. She does all the time, and which I didn't expect so quickly. You know what I'm saying? But it just happened because it was already there. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
Judy, similar to what I just said to Lori, ask your sister and ask her to communicate to you in the ways that you can understand. Because every one of us here has those psychic abilities open, but sometimes we have different abilities that are stronger than others. And spirit knows, they can tell which ones are the strongest and the best ones to communicate through to us with. Okay? It may have something to do with the Native American articles there that you've got too. All right?
Maybe so. Yeah.
All right, and maybe, you know, do a little ask her, but also ask your guides, because they're working with you as she is letting you know she's there.
Yes.
Okay, it's a group effort. So, okay, awesome. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for showing up today. I just want to say right now, tomorrow, I will not be doing the Pet Detective show, but I do want to tell you, we've got an exciting show going to be coming up in another few weeks. Please watch for it. Okay. Some wonderful gifts with Spirit and some great results. I'm just going to leave it that way. And this show here, I can hear me. I go with the flow. It's like, well, what am I going to do for a show? And then the appropriate people respond, who's supposed to be here, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, it's great to see all of you, Denise, Judy, Lori, Patty, Donald. Take care, be safe. And some of you who are on the East Coast in the cold weather, be warm, stay warm. I know about that. And hope to see you all again. God bless, and send you all big hugs. Okay? Take care,
Thank you,
everyone.
Pam.
Hope to see you all. Good night. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Meeting for